Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of T-Dog RC. I'm Tim and in this episode I'm going to be carrying on with the build of this, which is the AtomRC Swordfish. So I've done most of the main construction, got the tail on, got the servos installed, got the wings all sorted. So this episode is going to be all about getting the radio gear installed and crucially getting the flight controller installed and everything wired up and tested, and then we should be more or less good to go. So let's get it on the bench, let's get stuck in. Okay, so here we are on the bench then. Got the fuselage of the Swordfish. I'm going to be putting crossfire in this. Not quite sure where I'm going to install that just yet, but probably somewhere in the fuselage. I might even have that sort of poking out the back around here. And I know sometimes, you know, people say these should be vertical, but I don't do like ultra long range FPV because you can't really do it in this country. So that should be fine there. And then in terms of actual FPV, I've got, this is actually a bit of an old concoction from a Hobby King Bixler that I put FPV on, and this is this was like the wooden canopy that you got rid with it, so you could rig it up as FPV. So that's what I used for that. So probably getting rid of most of this. The holder's quite nice, 3D printed holder for the air unit. But what I've got to do really is decide where I'm going to put the camera, because it can go on here, and there's two little posts that stick up, and the camera fits on there, and then the air unit goes inside, which is a neat solution. That's going to look, you know, nice and neat. It's nice and easy to get wired up. The issue I've got is that from a lot of the shots I've seen on YouTube and stuff, like, obviously you see, if the camera's here, you see a lot of the nose in front of the, you know, in front of the image, and I think that's going to annoy me. So I'm thinking of putting it here, which is this canopy. There's two canopies. There's a normal canopy like this, or there's this one that's got this wooden platform on, which is meant for putting FPV gear on. So I think I'm going to put it on here, but I've just got to decide, you know, where. I'm still going to try and hopefully get the air unit in here, but I just need to make sure the cable's long enough for the camera really. But that will be ideal. Obviously I'm going to have to make a hole in that for the camera to come through, and I may even mount it on. I have got a servo here, so I can turn the camera as well. So tempted to do that, but we'll see. And then flight controller wise, so I need to take this speed controller off because that's redundant now because we've got speed controllers in the wings. So I've got to desolder that. But this is a Maytech F405 wing, so standard stuff. I've used this before obviously, so it's all wired up and ready to go, which is nice. Got a decent GPS unit here as well, and GPS just fits in the back there, so we've got to get that wired in. But the first job I've got to do actually is I need to get my laptop out and get this flashed, because it's got an old version of INAV on it and I need to flash it with the latest version. So I'm just going to completely wipe it and flash it. I'm not going to film that. There's lots of videos on YouTube on how to flash flight controllers with INAV, but I'm going to get that done, and then once I've got that done, I'll show you what I've done in terms of placing everything in the fuselage, and you know what I'm thinking about the layout. Now, does this or does this not look like the bench of someone who is doing an FPV project? Bits everywhere, wire, soldering iron out, all that sort of stuff. So I just thought I'd quickly show you where I'm at with things. So I've started, I've desoldered the old ESC that was on the Maytech F405. I've also last night updated this to version 7 of INAV. Had a little bit of a pain getting that updated. I had to do that thing where I had to upload the Zadig USB driver because it wasn't picking it up on my computer, but fairly straightforward to do. Watch the video by Painless360, who's got so many videos on this sort of thing, and just downloaded a bit of software and that sorted it out for me. That's just something to be aware of though. What was happening was when it was picking it up and I could connect to it on INAV, but when I went to flash it, just nothing happened basically. I just hit the flash button and nothing was happening, and that's apparently a sign that it's not detected it properly. So I'm making up these little XT60 cables at the moment with some, what is this? This is 18 gauge silicon wire. Obviously you don't need it to be too thick with it being an XT60 connections. A little bit of heat sink on there just to neaten it up. So these are gonna glue onto the two ESC pads. So obviously you're gonna have two because it's a twin motor. I've already got this, this is taken out of an old model, so I've already done some work on this flight controller before. So I've already got the GPS set up here on these pins, and what I did is I bought some of those, I think they're called Dupont connectors or something like that, of various different widths and sizes, so I can make up these nice little, you know, like a 4-pin servo connector almost. It's just a lot neater than trying to solder it on, and you can use the pins. So I've already got the GPS connected. Then I've got, for the air unit, I've got that connected to the 9-volt pin outs there. So those two there, that's giving me 9 volts supply to the camera, to the VTX, sorry. And then this is my transmit and receive. And what I've done is, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to permanently solder these to the VTX. I've bought a new cable for the VTX. It looks a complete mess at the minute, but I just need to take some of the cables out because obviously I only need to use the ones that I need. So I'll probably get rid of these two connectors on the end here, just trim those off and permanently solder that and put a little heat shrink over the joint to make it nice and neat. But for the power, I'll keep these on, and I'll probably solder something similar to the other side, and that's so I can fiddle around with the plane, but have the VTX unplugged so it doesn't overheat, and then when I'm ready to fly just plug it in. That works quite well. So that's that. And then I just thought I would show you just a couple of tips really for what I do. I know everyone does different things, but I've got this great big lump of blue tack, it's called here in the UK. It's like a sticky putty sort of thing. Usually use it for putting posters up and stuff like that, but it works really well just for holding things for it when you're soldering. So I've just got a great big lump of that, and you can sort of push things into it and it holds it in place there like that whilst you're soldering. And then when you're soldering XT30 and XT60 connectors, I saw another good tip which I've used a few times before, and that is to try and see if you've got an extension lead lying around. And as it happens, I've actually got some XT30 extension leads like this, which I just bought for charging batteries of XT30s because my charger's an XT60. So just something like that you can plug the plug-in that you're going to be soldering. If you can get that plugged into something like this, whether it's XT30 or XT60, when you're soldering the two brass pins, whatever you want to call them, it dissipates the heat down the cable and works really well, because I have had it in the past when I first sort of started messing around with all this stuff, and I soldered an XT60 connector, and I didn't do anything like that. I ended up actually melting the yellow plastic because it just got so hot because of the residual heat in there. So that's a really good tip, and I've never had a problem since I've been doing that. So a couple of little bits there. So I'm going to get these XT30s soldered onto the board, and then I am ready to mount the board in the plane and start messing around with all that stuff. So I'll show you once I've done that. Right then, it's another day and I'm back on the bench, and I've pretty much got everything installed now. So I'm just going to show you where I'm at. So I've got the GPS installed in there, and actually because my GPS is quite a big one, it's a really nice tight fit in there, so I don't need to glue that in or anything like that. I've mounted the crossfire antenna here, which may or may not be the best place, but should be okay there. And then underneath, I've tried to make this as neat as possible, because some of them that I've seen on YouTube, they're just like a complete mess. But it's quite tight in here, and obviously there's loads of cables going into it. But basically I've got the servo cables and the GPS cable routes through here, and I've put some of that sort of snakeskin protection sleeve on here, because I don't want the ends of these the servo arms sort of you know, causing any issues with the cable there. Got the XT60 routing around there and into the battery bay, and then obviously you've got these cables out each side of the wings. This one's a bit tight here, but to be honest, I'm probably not going to take the wing off that much, even though it's got this semi-quick release system, so that's not going to be a major issue. And then in here I've got, that's going to the receiver, which routes around. Well, the receiver's kind of just nestled in there. I do just need to watch that that doesn't catch on any cables as well, because the pins on that could be quite sharp. So yeah, receivers in there, and then DJI is transmit receive here, going into the up into the battery bay. Well, I'll show you that in a second. And then the power for the DJI there, and then ESCs plug in here. Obviously XT30's there. So I think it's about as neat as I can get it. I'm relatively pleased with it. Got all the servos plugged in here. So yeah, it's not too bad at all, I think, in there. And then on the top, so in the battery bay, it's fairly clean in there. So you can see there's plenty of space to put the battery in. XT60 coming out there, and then I've got the power leads for the, well, positive and negative for the DJI unit here, so I can just unplug one of them while I'm messing around getting it all set up, and the air unit's not sat there getting too hot. That's the idea behind that. And then the actual air unit itself, I've decided to put in here, which is the bay that's meant for it. If I can get this out. And again, it's a nice tight fit in there. I don't have to glue that in or anything or fasten it down. It's just, that's going to be fine just with the friction of the foam. I've not got the antennas on there just yet, so that's something I need to sort out and route them through here. What I'm going to do with the camera, I've decided, is I'm going to mount the camera onto this canopy. So you get two canopies, as I've probably said already. You get that one, and then you get this one where you can mount some equipment to. So I'm going to mount the camera to this one. But I'm just going to use this 3D printed mount that I'd already got. The problem I've got though is my MIPI lead isn't long enough to go through that hole there and then route up to the air unit in here. So I've bought a new lead, which is a 20mm lead, so that's fine, but these aren't specifically designed for the air unit. And the issue is, when you take the back of the camera off with these two screws here to get the lead off, it unplugs fine, but it leaves this metal piece on, and apparently it's virtually impossible to get this metal piece off because you've got the, you've got the other end of the MIPI lead like that on the end of it, and you can't really get that through the hole. So what I've read is that what lots of people do is they 3D print a new back to the camera. So that's what I did the other day. So nice little 3D print there, and as you can see, it's got a slot in the bottom for the cable. So I'll keep this one spare in my spares box, but I'm going to have, I can't really take that back plate off, but it will be replaced with this. And then I can route that through there and into the front of the air unit. So that's the plan. Should all work okay. Should be quite a nice, neat installation. I do always try and, I like these things to be as neat as possible. The thing with FPV, there are so many cables all over the place. It is difficult to get it neat, but I always, that's what I like to do. And I think it helps troubleshooting as well, if you can trace all the cables and things like that. Maybe that's my IT background coming through there and doing nice, neat patch installations in cabinets and things like that. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to get the air unit installed now, get the camera installed, and I'll show you what that looks like, and then I think we're more or less done then. Okay, finally got it all set up. A little bit of faffing around, but got there in the end. Nothing to do with the kit, it's more just me fiddling with things. But everything's set up, ready to go. I've mounted the Crossfire aerial here. So that fits on there quite nice. I've just secured it in place with a little bit of CA. And as you can see there, I've gone with the camera on the front. That's all working, tested. I used the extended MIPI cable and that worked fine. And I think I mentioned in the last clip that I printed a new little 3D back for the DJI Air camera. and that went on quite well with the new cable going through it. So that's all worked fine. I've tested it in the goggles, we're all working. We've got OSD as well, which is good. So one of the issues I did have, which I've literally just sorted out now, was that the motors were out of sync basically. I had two issues with the motors. First of all, I should have checked the props before I soldered the ESCs, but I've got that you get different props, so they spin different ways. That's something to be aware of. So I'd got both my motors spinning to the right, which is sort of standard, but actually you should have one spinning, well, both of them spinning inbound towards the fuselage. That's the way the props are. So with the right hand motor, I had to just resolder the leads and cross two of them over to get the motor spinning in the opposite direction. So that was that little issue, but that's soon sorted. So as I say, both motors are spinning towards the fuselage. So that left one's going that way and the right one's going this way. But then the other issue I had was that the left motor seemed to be working fine, but the right motor didn't, and it wasn't throttling up until the stick was about halfway. But the left motor was, going fine, so it was sort of pulling it to one side, which I thought was a bit strange. So what I tried doing, I was worried that it might be the motor or ESC that's faulty, but what I've done is I've calibrated the ESCs through INAV, and I'm pretty sure that's resolved it, so hopefully that will be okay. Got the air unit mounted here, fairly standard, that's where it's meant to go. Had to adjust some of the push rods just to mechanically get this set up in a neutral position, and then in INAV, because I'm using the new version of INAV, I will have it set up to auto trim. So I'll just quickly go through the INAV setup. Not that this is an INAV tutorial, but it might be useful to some people. So that's just certainly something to bear in mind with the motors, that you may have to calibrate the ESCs, and in order to do that, basically all I did was go to the output screen here and enable that, and then put that up to full throttle. Then I connected the battery, waited for the tones, and then slid that down. So kind of the same sort of thing you do with any fixed wing ESC model, and then that's calibrated them. So that's all good there. So fairly standard stuff in there. Obviously mixer, I've just kept it as the default, so it's a V-tail. Haven't done anything else in here. Outputs, that's all as it is. I wasn't sure whether maybe it was the ESC protocol that was wrong, but I checked on another video of the return to home version, which is already pre-configured with INAV, and they've got the ESC set to standard. So left those as they are, so that's all the same. I have had to just slightly adjust the mid position of one of the aileron servos because I couldn't get the push rod. It didn't leave me enough thread on the end of the ball link. It was just, so I wasn't happy with that, so I wound it back in and then just adjusted the mid to get the servo, to get the aileron neutral. Ports, obviously this is going to be different for different people, but I've just got UART2 has got my receiver on, UART4 has got GPS, and then UART6 is MSP display port, that is for the OSD for the DJI. Configuration, not done anything with here other than the standard stuff, as in enabling GPS for telemetry and that kind of thing. So that's all standard in there. Failsafe, obviously I've got this set to RTH, return to home. PID tuning, I've not done too much in here. I haven't done too much in here, just gone into mechanics and just added 4 degrees of nose up to get it to fly level. Hopefully that will be okay. Advanced tuning, not done anything in there. Programming, not done anything with that. Receivers, obviously standard receiver. And then modes, I always use the same setup. So what I'll do is this model now, I'll use it as a template on my Boxer. So every time I do an FPV model and it's not a flying wing, then I'll use this profile. But yeah, I have my arm switch here. Have this as my modes, and then that's return to home, basically. So what I've got here is I've got angle mode and I've got manual mode set, but then I've got nothing for horizon, so that should then be acro mode when the switch is in the middle position. And then we've just got nav return to home on channel 7. So that's that. Adjustments, not doing anything with that. GPS, left that as standard. I have enabled use Galileo, not sure whether we're allowed to use those anymore. Can't remember what they've agreed since we left the EU. So this one you will need to do the alignment tool, because you have to mount the flight controller upside down. So one thing I did do, by the way, is when I went to do the calibration, I didn't do anything with the alignment tool, ran through the calibration. You have to start with the model upside down, which is actually, as far as this is concerned, the right way up. So once I'd done that, I then went to the alignment tool, and I've just changed the roll axis to 180 to denote that actually the flight controller's upside down. And then obviously OSD is just standard stuff that I've done in there. And then one last thing I've done is I've just changed the roll rate under PID tuning down to 70, because it's got a lot of aileron movement, and I think that's going to be seriously twitchy when I'm flying in manual mode. And I've added a little bit more expo, set to 30, but on the roll and pitch I've added 40 just to try and calm that down, because yeah, I think it's going to be quite twitchy. And that is it, basically. It is set up and good to go. As you can see, because I've flipped the flight controller 180 degrees, it's the right way up. So we're all good there. So next job is Maiden. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to see the Maiden, then subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you on board as a subscriber. It doesn't cost you anything. And then if you hit the bell icon, you'll be notified when I do that Maiden video. If you are already a subscriber, then I really appreciate your support. The channel's starting to build now. Obviously, always want more subscribers. But yeah, thanks a lot for those people who support me and subscribe. If you've enjoyed what I'm doing, then give me a thumbs up, because that will help me out on YouTube as well. And if you've got any comments, then stick them in the comments box and I will certainly get back to you. My overall view of this is it's gone together quite well. It was quite a challenge, as I say, which is fine. I've got no issue with that, because I quite enjoy fiddling with things and soldering and all that sort of stuff, but just something to be aware of if you think... it does actually say on the website, to be fair, I did double check, and it says PMP, but then in brackets it says in kit version, so it's a little bit misleading, I guess, because PMP generally means that it's kind of ready to go, other than putting your radio gear in and a battery. But it's been quite enjoyable getting it all set up, and of course you can get it all configured exactly how you want, and that these things are meant to fly really good. So I'm looking forward to doing the Maiden, and it'll be the first time as well that I get to use my new DJI goggles too, although I've not got an O3 unit in this, just got a standard air unit. So that would be good to try those out. So yeah, in the meantime, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you soon for the next one.